Are you pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine? Either way, you're probably wrong. Oh, I'm gonna get so much hate for this fucking video.
Welcome to our COVID-19 special. Today, focusing on how the pandemic fuels anger among coronavirus skeptics, right up to the point of physical violence.
They've done such a great job at manipulating the masses that it's other people shutting down other citizens.
You want to have to go to someone's funeral because you didn't take the shot.
And I have to have energy to stop this vaccine shit that's coming.
It feels like the world has never been as divided as it is right now, with two groups of people holding completely opposite beliefs, each thinking the other side are totally dumb and have just been brainwashed by either the mainstream media or online conspiracy theorists.
You know, wearing a mask is like trying to keep a fart in your trousers.
Brainwashing isn't technically real in the way we normally think about it, but belief change definitely is. And that's what's actually happening here. But the thing is, human beliefs are not based on truth. They are formed from a survival mechanism we have. Back in the olden days, humans were much more likely to survive if they were accepted by a tribe, because that way they could pass on their genes and they had more people to help protect them from predators. So let me give you a hypothetical scenario. Let's pretend it's like 500 years ago, you're part of a human tribe trying to survive out in the wilderness, but suddenly this tribe decides that some random cat is their god. They all worship this cat, and if you don't worship it, they're going to kick you out of the tribe and force you to try and survive on your own, which will inevitably lead to your death. Would you A, go along with this idea of a cat as a god just in order to survive, or look at the facts, decide that the truth is more important than acceptance, and turn away from this cat religion to an almost certain death? What did you choose? Well, actually, that was kind of a trick question because your brain wouldn't let you pick in this scenario. As I said, our brains have not evolved to find truth, they have evolved to survive. So instead of risking you making the wrong decision and potentially getting kicked out of the group and dying without even passing on your genes, your brain is just automatically going to convince you that the cat is a god. And this belief will very quickly become a part of something that we call our sacred values. Our sacred values are our most deeply held principles. They act as pillars that our mind constantly refers back to as it's navigating the world and making decisions. Some common examples of sacred values are human life, health, love, justice, human rights. These are all things that most of us anyway value above all else. Once our beliefs become sacred, our brain no longer sees them as up for debate. Which is why for most people watching this, if I would ask you to kill someone, that would not be up for debate. You just simply wouldn't do it. It's a sacred value. Somewhere along the line though, pro-vaxxers decided that getting the vaccine was a sacred value. And anti-vaxxers decided that exposing the pandemic was a sacred value. Let's take a closer look at what's happening in the brain whenever these two groups of people collide. When we are exposed to information or a way of thinking that conflicts with one of our sacred values, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain responsible for rational thinking and decision making, goes offline, while the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain responsible for emotions and social judgments, stays on. Meaning that whenever these deeply held beliefs are challenged, our brain is not going to change its mind. It is literally going in one ear and out the other. Nothing is going to change it. Your logical brain is literally switched off. The only time we are susceptible to persuasion is whenever we are feeling disconnected from our social group or tribe, because our beliefs are 100% linked to belonging. You believe in something because you want to belong. So if we tried to fit into one social group, for example, we tried to fit into anti-vaxxers, but we never really felt like we belonged there, or we never really got a sense of importance there, we would just feel pretty disconnected. Then if someone come along from the pro-vax community, and once we started speaking to that group of people, we felt like they were meeting our human need of love, acceptance, and importance, then our brain will allow our beliefs to change, and we will become a part of that group instead.
So was it overnight you went from?
No, it took months, and I had friends that really poured into me and listened to my fears and talked me through it, and it really helped to know that they were scared, even though they're pro-vax. they're scared giving their kids shots because that's just normal parental anxiety.
It's not an instant change, however. It's very much a series of baby steps taken over a long period of time, until the content you consume changes so much to the point where you find yourself in an echo chamber, and the only stuff you see is stuff that reaffirms your beliefs. So the beliefs you currently hold are beliefs that your brain convinced you were true because at some point your brain decided that the group of people that holds these beliefs makes you feel accepted and important. So how do people get to a point where they believe in these beliefs so strongly to the point where they're willing to fight or even die for them? Well, an interesting 2014 experiment reveals that answer. Scientists brain scanned 30 people of Moroccan descent at the earliest stages of radicalization. In the brain scanner, they were shown a selection of Muslim values and asked to rank on a series of 1 to 10 how likely they were to fight or die for them. For the most part, they all answered that they were moderately likely to fight or die for each of the Muslim values. But then they played a game of catch with white Spanish men. Initially, they all played fairly and they were all passing the ball back and forth to each other. But after a while, the white Spanish men stopped passing the ball to the patient of Moroccan descent, and they just passed it back and forth between themselves. Then the people of Moroccan descent were put back into the brain scanner, shown the same set of values, and asked to rank how likely they were to fight or die for them again. After being excluded, the part of their brain responsible for rule retrieval exploded online, and they all ranked themselves extremely likely to fight or die for each of the Muslim values. The three most common themes in extremists and terrorists are injustice, needing to belong, and a sense of identity. It's when we identify with a certain group of people and their beliefs, and then feel like that certain group of people is being unfairly excluded from the rest of the world, that extremists rise up and violence starts.
And a lot of them also told us they will continue holding demonstrations like this until they feel like their voices are heard.
It breaks the world down into black and white, and it becomes us versus them. And this is why social media banning people who say anything about anti-vax is an extremely bad idea. It has and will continue to cause an uprising of extremists in the anti-vax and pro-Trump communities.
You have just woken the sleeping beast!
Which is just going to cause the individual groups in our societies to divide more and more, until our views are so radically different that we see the other side as modern day Nazis, and we destroy each other in the pursuit of freedom. But wait, not all hope is lost, however. Back in the brain scanning experiment, they discovered something else. They put the Muslims back into the brain scanner for a third time, but for each of the values, they saw the community score, and the community score was deliberately ranked a lot lower than normal. Once they saw that the rest of their community weren't willing to fight or die, their willingness to fight or die lowered, and the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex came back online, meaning peer influence can also change beliefs. I can pretty much guarantee you that if everyone in your peer group changed their mind about the vaccine, you would eventually change your mind as well, even if there was absolutely no additional evidence gathered. Your need to belong and feel important trumps any truth, and we're all exactly the same. And this is why both people who are strongly pro-vax and strongly anti-vax are both probably wrong. When you believe in something so strongly that it becomes the one and only truth, and anyone who believes anything else are just brainwashed morons, then I promise you, those beliefs are not based on facts, but instead based on emotions and your need to fit in. Instead, the truth about the vaccine lies probably somewhere in the middle. It probably is required to save lives, but it's also probably a lot more dangerous and has a lot more side effects than officials let on. The truth always lies in complexity, so you have to be willing to look at both sides of the argument non-judgmentally. If you're too scared to even look at content that disagrees with your current beliefs, then you aren't thinking critically. And this is not an insult. This is how all of our brains work. Every single human being on this planet just wants to fit in. But what if there was a group of people whose sacred values was finding the actual truth, who didn't have any kind of bias, who always looked at both sides of the argument and thought critically about the situation until they arrived at an answer that they felt was right based on logic? Then we can meet our needs of feeling accepted and important while also finding out the truth about the world without having to throw so much hate at those who disagree with us. Because as we know, the people who disagree with us are just doing the exact same thing as we are, trying to fit in. Well, that's what I want to do with this channel. I want to build a community of truth seekers. So please go down to the comments and tell me why you're pro-vax or anti-vax, and I will read every single one and actually think about it critically. Or do one better and even link me to some of the resources where you got that information. I genuinely want to know what the real actual truth is about the vaccine, and I'm only going to know that if I look at both sides carefully. Here in the truth seekers community, we have one rule. If we can't explain the opposition's argument better than they can, then we haven't done enough research to have any belief on that topic whatsoever. We need to listen to both sides and figure out where on the scale the truth actually lies. So if you want to be a truth seeker, hit subscribe, go to the comments and tell me what your beliefs are, and go read what everyone else is saying as well, and together we'll find the answers not only to this vaccine, but to this incredible planet that we live on.